Now, listen up.
3, 2, 1.
It's showtime.
That's great.
This is ridiculous.
99.3 The Truth.
You can't handle the truth right now.
Ooh.
That was the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Let's do it. Hit it.
It's time for Max World.
And here we go.
Everybody, let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Call Mac 244-0077 or text 809-0993.
It's showtime, everybody. Showtime.
Exclusively on 99.3 The Truth.
307. 11th day of August in the Lord's year 2016. That's Jesus' third millennium. Man, I thought he'd come back sooner, didn't you? He hasn't, obviously, we haven't failed enough yet. I guess the world has to get even worse for him to come back. But it doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't care. I'm just glad he picked me and I get to go. So, all right, it's a Thursday, and we are live here in Max World. Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, is not here today. And so Chris Roloff, the trusted friend of this program and geek guru, will be watching the chat and the Service Legends Truth Talk text line at 515-809-0993. So, Frank, you're kind of the main anchor today. Frank, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at the text to make sure he's pulled the text up.
Does he have it right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so now you can move around the corner, sit closer to Christy, so you don't have to look at that computer all day and bother poor Mr. Roloff. You can turn the screen so he can't see it. I much appreciate that. All right. And obviously, Christy's here today. Christy Young, she joins us from time to time. Not often enough, I might add.
Hi, Mac.
Hi. And a little bit later in this half hour, Congressman Steve King from the 4th District will be in, and he'll take your phone calls and your questions. I already have one constant thread going on a post that I put on Facebook. One guy just thinks that the fact that he has a Confederate flag on his desk, he just thinks that's horrible. I mean, symbols and things like that aren't a big deal to me, because to me that's just... that's political correctness. If you don't like my cross, or you don't like my coffee mug, or you don't like my sign, and you tell me it's wrong, now you're wrong. I mean, you're wrong. You're wrong. There's no law that says I can't have that. And besides that, man's law sucks anyway. I don't care much about man's law. I care about God's law. When I see the Confederate flag, I just think of the Dukes of Hazzard. But I understand there are some low information voters, I'm sorry, yes, I meant you, who want to make a flag into political correctness. So, when Congressman King is in, we will talk about it. And your questions, the best thing to do, unless you want to yourself talk to Congressman King, obviously then you'd call into the station at 515-244-0077. But the Service Legends Truth text line is open. And you can just pile those questions in now. What's your name? Chris Roloff will be. Well, you don't have your name tag on. How am I supposed to know that? You're in a different seat. You look different today. Did you sleep well? No, I didn't think so. The baby keeping you up at night?
He shaved his beard.
No, he didn't. All right. And in this arena, you can ask any question you want. Just be nice. That's all I care about. If you start to get rude to Congressman King, and I don't care if it was Hillary Clinton, if you've listened to this show once, you've listened to it 1,000 times, we don't do rude. We can do humor, which some people might think is rude or sarcastic, but it's not. It's humor. Therefore, if someone were to say to you, do you have a sense of humor? Your answer has to be, not always. Sometimes I don't think other people's political correctness is humorous. It's a thing, okay? It's a thing. That's all it is. I was sitting in a meeting the other day. Who was I talking with? I don't remember who I was talking with.
Me.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
And the question came to me is, are you easily offended? And I said, I'll be honest with you, one of the character defects that I asked Jesus to take from me was being offended, because I discovered myself that when I tell someone, hey, what you just said, I'm offended. What I'm really doing is pushing that person back. I'm embarrassing them. I'm intimidating them. And I'm trying to change the topic because you know what? They got me. They got me. And the only way I know out is to be a bully. Hey, that offends me. You will very, 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 very rarely hear me say I was offended by that. I have been blessed with a spirit where offense just kind of rolls off my back like water on a duck's back. So me and Quack Quack are a lot alike. All right, I want to talk about something before the Congressman shows up. There is a new film coming out. Filmmaker Ray Comfort, whose movies have been seen by millions, claims to destroy atheism. Am I saying that right, Frank? Atheism?
Yes.
With one scientific question, which he reveals in a new movie called The Atheist Delusion. Comfort, co-host of the award-winning television program The Way of the Master, said regarding atheists' assertions that there is no God, quote, having to point out the existence of the Creator is like having to point out the sun at noon on a clear day. Despite this, a popular skeptic's extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. Thanks to modern science, we have that extraordinary evidence, says Comfort. Outspoken atheists such as Bill Maher and Richard Dawkins say that they would believe in God if there was scientific evidence. This movie calls their bluff. Now, this reminds me of the guest that we had on yesterday, which...
Jeff Durbin.
Yeah, which he's an apologist, and he's coming...
Yep.
He's coming to...
September 16th and 17th.
Harvest Bible Chapel
in Grimes.
Yep, $15. Go to go to harvestdesmoines.org/apologist. Or apologetics.
Yeah. And I think there's a Facebook page for it, too, that has been created.
All right, so you can go and get your tickets. So you, too, can get up to speed with today's lingo on how to what happens when you are confronted with an atheist. And I say that very carefully because when I find out somebody's an atheist, I to be honest with you, I really don't want that conversation. I used to kind of like it. I saw it as red meat. And the Lord has just changed my heart on that. You know, I asked him for about 3 weeks a year ago, is it my job to preach the gospel or defend it? And my answer I got back was, God's a big dude. He can defend himself. So just go out and preach the gospel. So I would prefer to do that rather than argue with an atheist who, quite frankly, is uninformed, unrealistic, unreasonable, and just plain right, low information person all the way around. Frank?
Well, preaching the gospel is going to offend someone.
Yes, Frank, that's true. We've known that for 2,000 and some years, but I'm glad you reminded my audience of that.
So how about just defend it and preach it both?
Because that's not what God tells me to do. Is that what What are you doing on your phone? Pay attention to the show.
I'm paying attention.
I know you are.
I'm watching.
I know
I'm
you
listening.
are. I know you are. But it's like sitting at a table. My daughter Samantha is so good at reminding me, if we're going to get together and have lunch or breakfast or get together, the phone is off.
She has a valid point.
She does.
Yeah,
she has
absolutely.
a great point.
Is your phone off? I just shut mine off.
Can I beat him now? No, I can't.
No,
Yes.
that is not Christ-like.
Well, I don't know. Jesus was pretty mad at the temple when somebody like you was throwing your mouth around. You know. All right. Comfort explained that he made the movie after taking a camera to Southern California universities and asking atheists a scientific question that he'd never asked atheists before. To my astonishment, Comfort claims, those who were open to reason changed their mind about the existence of God in minutes. You can see the light come on in their eyes. We also were able to interview outspoken atheist Professor Lawrence Krauss, the well-known theatrical physicist, and show that scientific flaw in his show him the scientific flaw in his arguments against the existence of God. So when does this movie come out? Does this movie come out? Has it come out yet? No, it's not out yet. I think it comes out in October. All right. So what do you do when let's say you're sitting waiting for something? Mm-hmm. So you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
You ride public transportation?
No. I have, but I don't.
All right, so you're at Fairway, because I know you shop at Fairway.
Yes.
You're at Fairway, and you're standing in the line, and the guy in front of you has like 2,000 rolls of toilet paper, so it's going to be a while. And you say, "That's okay, sir. God bless you." And the atheist turns around and looks at you and say, "You believe in God?" What would you say, Frank?
I would say yes.
Why?
Well, because in a world without God, an atheist couldn't possibly exist.
Wow. That's an interesting line. Unpack that for me.
Well, okay, suppose we had a universe in which God didn't exist. Where would the concept of God even come from? How could man just fathom on his own little brain power come up with the concept of God to start with? So there has to be a God for there to be someone anti to God. So there has to be a real product, as Chris was talking about the other day about the real $100 bill. For there to be a counterfeit $100 bill, there has to be a real $100 bill. If the real $100 bill doesn't exist, then the counterfeit can't exist.
You got thoughts on that?
Well, if someone said that to me, I think I would just respond, "I'll pray for you."
Yeah.
But also, I believe, because I know when I'm closer to God that I feel better and I act better.
Yeah.
So, and that's my proof.
Yeah.
And the further away I am, the worse my behavior. If I'm left to my own devices, my mouth is bad.
Well, we're glad you're not left to your own devices today, because you're on the radio and your mouth is beautiful. All right, we're coming up on the first break. Congressman Stephen King on his way. We never know because of his schedule. So right now we're going to talk about this new movie and atheism and how you deal with it. If you've got something you want to add, call in 244-0077 live on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
21 minutes after 3:21 on the 11th day of August in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and Congressman Steve King from the 4th District has... you showed up early, Congressman.
That can happen once in a while.
Well, I know. Well, and it's not like you're always late, but I anticipated you exactly on time, and you're here 8 minutes early, so that's nice.
Somebody slipped up. That's
Somebody messed up. No, I don't think so.
My staff over here in the corner. We're going to have to blame them for getting me here early.
I think they're awesome. In fact, the last guy that drove you around, maybe we ought to blame him for... Anyway.
Let's do that. He probably picked up the 8 minutes speeding or something, and now we're getting some extra time into our
There
schedule.
you go. All right.
But I did get a ticket from the downtown Des Moines picture deal, and... that. So I matched that up with it was for driving through a light that had a camera. But I'm confessing to none of that. But I will confess to getting a speeding ticket from the Autobahn once.
Oh, the Autobahn?
Yes.
The Autobahn?
The Autobahn.
In Germany.
Yes.
How do you get a speeding ticket on the Autobahn? I thought it was like speedless.
Well, it is, but when you go into a tunnel or some of those places, it'll go from like no speed zone at all, an unlimited speed limit, down to like 100 kilometers, which is about 63. And all the Germans see that coming, and they lock their brakes up. Their lights come on, and they shoot through that camera. And my reactions were a little slow.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
What was your top speed over on the Autobahn?
Oh, boy, I got past it at 105.
Oh.
So.
Wow.
And I was just trying to keep up with traffic so I didn't get rear-ended.
All right, this is, I don't know if you've seen this news story. This came from the Register today. Make no mistake, U.S. Representative Stephen King is voting for Donald Trump in November. But the outspoken conservative congressman from Northwest Iowa on Thursday suggested he could work with Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. And they quote you as say, this was on the soapbox. So do you know what they say here? Mm-hmm. Okay. I've sat across the table with Hillary Clinton eye to eye, and when you're working outside of staff and outside of the press, she is somebody I can work with, King said during a speech at the Des Moines Register's soapbox at the Iowa State Fair. And so, there are those naysayers of yours who are out there saying that you're putting you're putting it in both baskets.
Yeah, I'm not equivocating on my commitments or what I believe. There's a little bit ahead of that. I don't know if the text of that shows up, but I had just finished saying that, and I don't think that quote includes that I will disagree with her on almost everything. And
they didn't put that in here.
And I said that if she is the president, and I find that we are working in cross purposes with the president, I have to turn it up. I have to be more aggressive. And I even put a little facetious remark in there. I'm going to have to be more aggressive and come out of my shell.
Yeah.
And so...
And see, they don't put any of that in. No, they didn't miss it. They purposely let it out.
That's true. And so, but there's some reality in this. First, you want your congressman to be able to work with everybody.
Sure.
What if I just if I just threw everything into the face of any presidential candidate? We're a bipartisan country. I don't want Hillary in as president, and it would be a disaster to have her appointments to the Supreme Court. That was also part of my speech. But I have sat down with her in a closed-door session without staff and without press, eye to eye across the table, closer than this, where we're sitting right now. And she understands policy, and if you can speak candidly, then you can work with that kind of arrangement. But the odds of sitting down with the next president of the United States across the table eye to eye, if they're of a different party, are pretty close to zero.
Yeah.
So I'm just remarking that has been part of our history. And I've given her what I think is some objective advice, which I didn't think she listened to.
Well, wasn't that what happened with John McCain after Obama was elected, that John McCain was politely told to get in the back seat on the health care deal?
Well, yes, that can happen. And, if Hillary is elected, Obamacare becomes a permanent fixture in our society. And I'm always going to be opposing that with all the vigor I have.
Well, the idea would be if she gets elected, you get to sit in the back seat.
Yes. And I don't get to drive from there, though.
Yeah,
that's the problem. So it could be a backseat driver or a shotgun driver, but in this case, we have a lot ahead of us, and it's interesting how quickly the press picked up that one little. It's not even a sentence; it's a phrase.
I know,
and turned that phrase into a headline.
Yeah, and see, one of the things we do on this show is I analyze the way news stories are written by the other medias. I'm not very popular with them, but I don't really care. Kind of like you, I'm not interested in what the competition says. But we would have pulled this apart and said, now what didn't they say? Because the soapbox was 15 minutes?
20.
20, all right. And I could read this story in probably 60 seconds.
Yes. That happens in Mac. I'll give you another example. At the convention in Cleveland, where I was doing an MSNBC spot, and they decided, Charlie Pierce, a commentator, decided that he was going to criticize angry old white people. And so what goes through my mind is, well, what if he'd used any other color?
Yeah.
If he'd used green, there would have been outrage.
Yeah.
And anything that could have been compared to the hue of anybody's skin ever would have been a national outrage. But he can say one can be an optimist and hope that this is the last Republican convention where angry old white people have anything to say about it. Now, that's Charlie Pierce, and so I stood up for Western civilization, for the contributions of Western civilization, and the stories that came out of there were scores of stories, but all of them put together, even if you know the truth, you couldn't use a highlighter and pick out a word of truth here, a word of truth there, and compile a narrative that tells the truth. That's that bad out there in the print media, especially these things that come out in this way.
4th District Congressman, U.S. Representative Steve King is my guest for this hour. If you'd like to ask Steve a question, you can text it to Chris today at 515-809-0993, or you're welcome to call up and talk to Steve yourself at 515-244-0077. Do we have any text questions? No, not right now.
Well, one question is, how long is he staying?
You don't have a microphone.
Well, Bill wants to know how long he's staying, and you're going to be here till
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock?
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for agreeing to that.
I have to check
Is that
with my
okay?
staff, and if nobody shook their
4
head,
o'clock okay?
I'm here till 4.
Okay. All right, so I put the thing on. See, I use Facebook as a tool to promote the show and topics and stuff. So most every day I'll put something on about who the guest I have on and what would you like me to ask him for questions. I got a lot of questions, but this is one I'd like you to address because I think it's silly, and I'd like to, quite frankly, hear how you'd answer. Why do you have a Confederate flag on your desk? Aren't you getting tired of being asked that?
Well, I do get asked that a lot, and they'll ask me, why is it there? When did you put it there? How big is it? And we had a town hall meeting in Fort Dodge here last week, and that consumed about 30 minutes of the hour that we had. And but to answer some of those, one is because I do not want to see the left revise history. And they've been in the business of doing that. There are multiple occasions in Congress that began. And so they will take a symbol and attack that symbol and then and lay a label on that symbol, as they say, that is a pro-slavery flag. So any place that it flies is an advocacy for slavery.
That's not true.
Have you ever met anybody that was pro-slavery?
No.
No,
I never have.
I've not met al-Baghdadi or any of those people over there. I've not met anybody in my lifetime that's pro-slavery, but that is their assertion. And then so they want to then take the Confederate flag and have it be a symbol of slavery and a symbol of a promotion of, let's say, slavery itself. And what it really is, it's a symbol of our history.
Yeah.
And it was a painful and bloody history that we went through. Not very far from that flag is the shirt pocket size leather bound New Testament Bible that my 5 times great uncle John Richardson carried with him for 3 years during the Civil War.
Wow.
It lies by his picture in my glass covered coffee table there in my office. It's my most precious possession. My family were abolitionists, including my 5 times great grandfather Samuel Whiting. He and John Richardson marched off to war together, joined the 20th Iowa over by Palo, Iowa, and they marched south as the 20th did. And my great-grandfather's bones are someplace between Iowa and Vicksburg. He gave his life to put an end to slavery. That's been the case of my family a long time back. But we have to have an honest depiction of history here. Yeah. And if we let them revise history, then how do we ever achieve greatness going forward? And that's what's going on. And that's why it's there as a symbol of the real history of this country.
Congressman Steve King is our guest. 244-0077 is the call in which you can talk to him, or, of course, 515-809-0993 on the Service Legends Truth text line. You have a question? Got a question, Frank?
Yeah, I heard something on the news the other day about some Iowa residents, I think 14 of them, who's fighting the eminent domain for the pipeline that's supposedly going across Iowa. What's the update, the status on that? Is that going through some of your territory?
Okay, it is going through some of my territory, and I've heard from a few of my constituents, not a large number of them, but then there wouldn't be a large number given the number of landowners that this encounters. And, as it came forward, what I've said is that eminent domain is something that is there that our founding fathers envisioned that we utilize but nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That's Fifth Amendment language that was amended by the Supreme Court in the Kelo decision that struck those three words out, for public use. And now it's nor shall private property be taken without just compensation. I think that before there's any eminent domain used, there needs to be a massive effort to do all they can to configure that by negotiating with the landowners. And that's how you set the price. It seems I don't know the status of how many are out there or how much they may have overreached on eminent domain.
What did you make of Trump's comments a few months ago when he said something to the effect, if it wasn't for eminent domain, nothing would be built in this country?
He said we wouldn't have built the first foot of the XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline.
Right.
And I disagree with that. We could build a lot of pipeline without using eminent domain. I mean, how do you decide what that land is worth? Well, you go sit down and talk with the landowner, and you say, what will it take for me to strip off your topsoil and dig this trench in here and put this pipe in here and put everything back, and in 2 years it'll look like it did before, and I'll pay you for that.
Right.
And by the way, here's our bond and our guarantee. If anything goes wrong, this is how we'll dismantle it or how we'll abandon that pipeline. You make that deal. I mean, I can recall we wanted to build a park through one of our towns, and I went with the mayor out to talk to the lady that held the last piece of property out to the end of town to make all of this work. And we already had the contract to build it, but we didn't have access to her land. And she essentially said, leave. And so we left, but I said to the mayor, give me 3 days, and I want to go back and talk to her. I went back and talked to her and listened, and we just moved the trail to the other side of the creek, and she gave us the land. And that's one of the examples of what you can do if you're willing to negotiate, but you first have to be willing to listen.
Sure.
Congressman Steve King is here. Let's go to the phones where Harry from Perry is on the phone. Harry, how you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Go ahead to ask whatever you'd like
Harry.
to Mr. King.
Steve, the question I had for you goes back just a little bit here. Rather a strange circumstance. I'm like a lot of other people. I'm really fed up with the elitism that's being exercised in Washington, D.C. The point of my call with you is a point of inquiry. I called on June 20th. I called, there was Grassley, talked to Ernst, and talked to Dave Young. My request to them was to issue an arrest warrant for the Attorney General for tampering with evidence in a murder investigation. Now, this goes back to the incident in Florida, where the original pronouncements of that tragedy was they kept the guy's Islamic connection out of there. And then 4 hours later, they corrected it. So I went online and I did some research on tampering with evidence. What exactly is that, according to the law? Well, it says here, tampering with evidence or evidence tampering is an act in which a person alters, conceals, falsifies, or destroys evidence with the intent to interfere with an investigation, usually by law enforcement, governmental, or regulatory authority. It's a criminal offense in many jurisdictions. Now, you know and I know no one's going to file an arrest warrant. Was it Loretta Lynn? Is that her name?
Lynch,
Loretta Lynch. All right. So what am I to do, like a lot of Americans, what am I to do with the frustration I feel?
All right, Harry, I want you to hold on. We're on a hard break. We're going to take that 3-minute break. We're going to come back, and I want you to ask that question again. What are you supposed to do with your frustration?
Yeah.
Congressman King will answer that. Live here on The Truth, 99.3.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager. Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, 3:38, 22 minutes before the top of the hour. Move over just a little bit that way, Congressman. Congressman Steve King from the 4th District is in the House. Christy Young is here today, along with Frank the Verse, and Bob Montserrat is not here, so the geek, King Geek, Chris is here watching the Service Legends Truth Talk text line.
Yep.
You got a question? I don't want it now, but do you have one?
We do, yes, sir.
All right, we'll go. I want to go to Harry first, and I want to get Harry's question. Harry, just ask that question of Congressman King again for the folks that just joined us.
Which one? What am I supposed to do with my frustration?
Yes. Yeah.
The source of the frustration.
Well, yeah. There's the question. What
I'll
do you
both?
Yeah. Go ahead, King.
Harry, thanks. And I'll try both. First is that I asked him after we went to break too. I said, "What do I do with my frustration?" We're all frustrated here, watching a government that's not just unresponsive, but goes outside the bounds of the Constitution and the law continually and repeatedly. They need to be changed out. We need to get rid of that administration, and we need to have 2,500 new appointments by a new president that'll bring fresh blood in. And the best thing we can do with that is lend our voices to electing a new president and bringing fresh faces to the table with that. And so that'll actually address both of these, what we do with our frustration. That's an action item. And here's another thing that I believe in, is that you'll see a lot of political ads between now and November. The ads don't make the decision on who our next president, and by the way, all the way down the ticket, it's important to come out. What makes the difference is they start the conversations, and then we decide among ourselves around the round table, here in this studio, at the coffee table, at work, at church, wherever we might be. It's Iowans and Americans talking to each other that sort these elections, so never let them up for air. If somebody comes in and they utter something that's not true, if something that's off on the left wing somewhere, always make them substantiate their statements and give them back a clear perspective. And in doing so, it shifts the culture in the right direction, and politics are downstream from the culture. But I imagine I'm going to have all the rest of my life will be frustrated too, Harry. It'll just be less frustrating if we do all we can do.
Harry, does that help you understand the answer to your question?
Yeah, I guess that's about as close as we're going to get. Other than, obviously going to the voting space and casting our ballot and try to do our fighting there.
Yeah. Now, Harry,
but not just there, Harry. And I'd say to people, if they're being told go to the polls and vote, most of the time they forget to say get informed and then vote. But keep your voice in front, because everything you say matters. Right now, this conversation matters. Every conversation everybody has some impact.
Well, let me back up just a bit, because I got cut off with regards to your answer to the first question of this whole file an arrest warrant for the AG.
Okay.
So rehearse that for me again, if you would, please.
Well, as you said, that I need to look at the details of that. I have not seen them. But if you said it's a violation of federal law, the thing that came to my mind would be like Hillary dumping her emails. Look like it fits in the same category.
It does.
And we have dug into that pretty deeply, and Loretta Lynch has been before the Judiciary Committee. I've questioned her under oath, and I've taken her down a number of places. For 74 times that day, she refused to answer the question. And so I guess my best hope is that we will have a new administration with a new Attorney General, and the statute of limitations hasn't run out on some of the people we're talking about.
I sure hope so.
All right, Harry, thank you very much for calling in. Thanks for listening. I want to give you my answer to that if I can, because I have an actual answer. How do I deal with the frustration? I give it to Jesus, and I'm not being coy. Yep. That's the only thing I can do. It doesn't do me any good to get on this radio station and pontificate for 55 minutes in an hour about how frustrated I am. I just give it to him. He knows the answer. He knows the ending. I'm not supposed to worry about it, so I don't. But I'm glad you do.
Well, yeah, I do it this way, Mac, is every day I ask him for the measure of his wisdom that he would have me use to go forth and glorify him.
Good.
And I know I'll fall short every day, but I want to get as close as I can every day. And if he blesses me with another day, I ask him the same thing every morning.
That's right. All right. Chris is manning the Service Legends Truth text line. You have a question for Congressman King.
Yes, this comes from the Service Legends text line 515-809-0993. The question is, Congressman King, what will it take to reduce special interest groups' power that is affecting too many policies?
Well, as we know, that there's a lot of money that gets poured into politics, and I just watched as a principled man, Tim Hulskamp in Kansas, lost a primary to a lot of special interests. They wanted open borders, they wanted amnesty, and they poured about $3.5 million against him with 37 mailings, all of them negative, and some of them contradicted each other. They were so untrue. That's an example of special interest. Now that changes that seat out. Now that's sending a message to others that have stood on principle. I'm plugging my ears. I'm not going to hear what they're trying to tell me. But how do we get them out of there? We've got to continue to defend the people within our districts that stand up for that which is true. And when you see money coming from outside the district poured over their head, step up and defend them. And that's one thing. And if we get a presidential election, it does look to me like Donald Trump is ready to shake this thing up. And the reason that the establishment dislikes him to the level they do is because they don't have their jobs secure in the future. Right. And just maybe that makes the difference.
Yeah, and let me clarify that point, because you're very correct here. The reason the Republican establishment is against Donald Trump because Donald Trump's going to shake their paychecks up. He's going to change everything, and these people, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, are upset with Donald Trump because he's not going to play game the way the pockets have been lined in Washington for 40, 50, 60 years.
And the public is ready for that.
Yeah.
And, as I said, that I say the national co-chairman for Ted Cruz, who often railed against the Washington cartel, you look at the top two people finishing in Iowa, huge support for Iowans to shake this up and to address this, the Washington cartel. And I've said of Donald Trump, people are even so frustrated that they would turn a bull into the china closet and let him break all the dishes. And they'll sweep up the glass and start all over because they've had it with the Washington taking care of their own back.
Hey, quick comment and then a question. If Hillary's elected, the fundraising for her library will start day one, and she will not refuse any money from any nefarious source, domestic or foreign. So keep that in mind, voters.
I'm just wondering what the labels on the bathroom will say.
Yeah.
But really, here's my question. I hear some talk show hosts, in particular Mark Levin, talk about a constitutional convention. And there's 30 governors, I believe, in the United States, Republican governors, to about 20 Democrat or maybe an independent or so in there. But what would it take to start a constitutional convention to thwart Obama or go around his efforts?
Well, let's see. I don't know that I can quote the text of the Constitution back on that, but it takes the petition of a percentage of the states. It seems like it's 3/5 of the states to call a constitutional convention. And one of my reservations, and the reason I haven't poked down through that and moved the pieces around on the chessboard, is because I'm not confident we can control the subject matter. And I just asked this big question, and Mark Levin on that one, not very often do we disagree, but I would say, do you really think we could put together some people today that could write us a better Constitution than the one we have?
Yeah.
And if we can't get the Supreme Court to read it and make ruling on the text of the Constitution, how then do we control them by bringing all that effort to play? And how do we leverage then a Supreme Court decision? If they can come up with same-sex marriage out of the 14th Amendment ratified in 1868, what would restrain them? And if they can rewrite Obamacare from the bench, what would restrain them?
Well, wouldn't you assume if we have 3/5 of the states, I think we'd have the number it would require. Wouldn't you assume that that the Republicans could dictate and govern the things we want to make, or you're not that confident?
That means they've got to come in with conviction. And I start looking at conviction, and the numbers shrink from 30.
Sure.
So that's we've got a battle to fight to restore in the hearts and minds of the American people the value and the preciousness of our Constitution and the meaning of the text of the Constitution. And when the public loses sight of what that means, then there isn't much you can say. I know that there were freshmen that came in 2010 that said, we're going to write an immigration bill that we'll write it so good that Obama will sign it and then abide by it. Right. Are you guys serious?
No way.
No, they know better now.
They do know better.
Yeah.
All right, question from Facebook. Don't you ever get frustrated with Donald Trump's mouth?
Me.
You.
People come to me.
Hey, your mouth, let me tell you something. Your mouth is not... I'm on the people's side that say what you speak is truth. Yeah. I don't believe you say things that are wrong. Donald Trump, on the other hand...
Yeah, I've never had to apologize for anything that I've said publicly, and I can go back, and everything that I put out there does have an objective truth basis underneath it, despite some of the people who hyperventilated over it. Well, what I say to Donald Trump, and some people have asked me, well, go tell him. We're not yet having those conversations in private in that fashion. Maybe that'll happen, but I don't know how you coach somebody that has been working in an environment that made him a multi-billionaire when he doesn't hear no from people, and there's no real control over a Donald Trump. That's his lifestyle. And I don't think he understands how a little phrase can be multiplied in the way it does through the press.
Congressman Stephen King from the 4th District is here. You can talk to him, 515-244-0077. We're coming back live here on The Truth.
Good question.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common, everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, we're in our last few minutes here with Congressman King. If you've got something you'd like to ask him, like Harry from Perry did, or the gentleman or lady from The text, you can do so, but we're down to just a few minutes, so do it now. 515-244-0077, and the text line is 809-0993. Christy, would you ask the congressman that question that you asked? Because I think that's a powerful question.
I just don't understand or would like to know how the Clintons for decades have broke the law and have got by with it. There's always not enough evidence, or people disappear that are, going to testify. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And when there's a lot of smoke, it's a big fire. And it's been continuous with them, and I just don't understand.
Clear back to Whitewater and before Whitewater, and I recall a lot of this unfolding and reading down through the narratives and name after name, dozens of names of people that met an untimely death that were somehow in the Clinton orbit. I would take you to impeachment to give you an example. The House of Representatives impeached Bill Clinton. And they brought, 4 charges altogether. It seems like there were the 2 of them that remained were perjury and obstruction of justice. And then the Senate was compelled to have a trial. They held a trial on that, and the American people did not get justice out of the United States Senate because they came to a political conclusion, and they put everything all into the same question. Is he guilty? And if he is guilty, then does it rise to the level of removing him from office? So we never got a verdict, because the Democrats could say, well, it didn't matter whether he was guilty or not. I'm never going to tell you why, whether I think he was guilty or not, because I didn't think if he was, it was worthy to remove him from office because he just lied about sex and just lied to the investigators. So it was a disservice, a constitutional disservice on the part of the Senate. If we couldn't get justice out of an impeachment hearing, then when are we ever going to get justice?
All right, let's go to Chris from Clive. Chris, you've got a question for the congressman. Go ahead.
Yes, and I just tuned in recently after work, and I don't know if this has been brought up, but I was wondering, with all of the lies, obviously, that Hillary's made, the one that just sticks out in particular right now is with her testimony before the Benghazi committee, with the lies that Comey pointed out. How in the world can she not be prosecuted for perjury?
All right, Chris, thank you much for that question.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer to that question. How could she not be? Especially the members that sit on the Benghazi committee and also on the Judiciary or Government Oversight Committee that has dealt with this. They see this as clear examples of Hillary Clinton lying under oath. But here's the problem: whatever she said under oath, now that becomes the new fact, and whatever she said outside of being under oath now is rendered kind of redundant from a legal perspective. She can only be held accountable for what she said under oath. Now, it is a violation of the law to lie to the FBI. She went through a 3.5-hour interview, quote, put that word in quotes, interview with the FBI. They didn't read her rights. There is no videotape. There is no audio tape. There is no transcript.
How does that happen?
It has to be by design. It can't be by any other way by design.
It's got to be malicious, not ignorance or stupidness.
I asked a very well entrenched sheriff that question in his jail here a couple of weeks ago. Said, do you tape every interview that you have of anybody that may be indicted? And he said, yes, we have a videotape, and we have 2 angles of videotape. Sometimes we have to do it out on the street. That's off the mobile device. Sometimes it's in the car. And if an officer failed to tape an interview of someone who could become a suspect, a person of interest, then that officer would be up for disciplinary action. Wow. That was his answer.
All right, Frank, go ahead. One question.
Was Obama claiming any executive privilege on that at all? That you know of?
I don't think so. I don't remember that coming up in the dialogue, and we dug through a lot of that when Loretta Lynch was before the Judiciary Committee. I spent several days preparing for that 5-minute window I had.
515-244-0077. Paul, you've got a question for Congressman King. Go ahead.
Mr. King, how you doing?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
By the way, one word: Chicago.
I get it, Paul. I do. 1968.
All of it, all day long. All these people are from Chicago. That's where they all come from. That's organized, whatever you want to call it.
I'd call it organized crime, Paul. That's what I'd call it. All right, 515-244-0077 or 809-0993. Those are the questions. We have something from the Service Legends text line.
Yes, this is from 515-809-0993. That's the text number to send your question in. What is Iowa doing to embrace the Serbian refugees? How can the church get involved? That's the question.
Oh, my gosh. If we had Serbian refugees that came out of that part of the world that are persecuted Christians, I would have some really good advice. And I happen to been over there multiple times, and in this country too, worked with the Syrian and the Chaldean Christians. I haven't had as close a relationship with the Yazidis, but those are the three groups that are being persecuted. I sat down in Geneva at the UNCOR, the UN High Commission on Refugees, and they gave myself and Congressman Goodlatte a briefing on this. They had 115,000 names that they had vetted of those refugees coming out of the Syrian area. And we had a report that showed 1,562 that had been cleared to come to the United States. One was a Christian, and the rest were Muslims, Sunni Muslims. That's been the case consistently. They had 15,000 Christians listed in the 115,000 names they had, but only one of them made it through the Obama filter. And so I'm not very enthusiastic about what they're doing with this, and I think we can help them in the Middle East a lot, and that's what we should do.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do that with a new president in and a new administration. All right, another question I've got here on Facebook. This is kind of a follow-up to the Trump one. If you had the opportunity to say something to Mr. Trump that would stick, what would it be?
Oh, boy. I haven't even imagined this.
That would stick is the part that's hard to imagine. Yeah.
Boy, that's like a big ask. It's like a tap on the shoulder and you get one prayer answered. What is it? I would say...
My answer for that would be 10 more prayers.
Okay, you're quick, Mac. I need you next to me if I'm ever in the genie bottle. So I'd say this, that I would say to Donald Trump something that will stick. Let's refurbish the pillars of American exceptionalism, take it back to constitutional principles. Let's restore the faith that the American people have, and in doing so, we can restore families and we can respect life and marriage and build this wholesome country again from bottom up and inside out.
Yeah. Yep, that would be something powerful to say. I had a chance to ask Mr. Trump something, and I blew it. I was about this close to him. He was getting into his car out at the state fairgrounds a year ago, and I had my camera going, and I should have said, "Do you love Jesus?"
Oh, yes.
But instead, I said, "Mr. Trump, Jesus loves you." And I think probably the last one was the most important thing.
I like your message better.
Yeah, I know.
It's better that he hears that from you than he is to have to answer the question with the camera on him.
Yep. Well, that's the only thing I really care about, Mr. Trump, is that maybe in this whole thing, maybe we have a president who's actually born again, finds salvation while he's in office. Well, what a testimony that would be.
I am sure hoping so, and there's some discussion about that may have happened in the last few months. And I would add to this that the Mike Pence being the nominee for vice president is a terrific addition to the ticket.
That's what
I sat next to him for 8 to 10 years on Judiciary. He is a wholesome man, carries all the characteristics all of us here would want to see.
Thank you for being here today. You're always welcome here in Mac's World. We're coming back. I've got a guy you got to meet. His name's Bud. You're going to love this guy. It's coming up next here on The Truth.